The neighborhood was unusually quiet that late summer evening, as if the air itself knew something was about to happen. A gentle breeze stirred the lanterns hanging outside Tan Songyun's family home, their soft glow casting flickering patterns across the wooden gate. Inside, the familiar scent of jasmine tea and freshly steamed dumplings filled the air, comforting, ordinary, safe. But that safety was about to shatter. It was nearing 8:30 p.m. when a sleek, black car pulled up in front of the house. No one saw it coming. No reporters, no paparazzi, just a shadow in the night. The driver stepped out first, scanning the street like a bodyguard on high alert. Then, from the back seat, Shu Kai emerged, dressed casually in a white linen shirt and dark jeans, his hair slightly tousled from the wind. He looked almost too calm, but his eyes held a storm. He didn't knock right away. Instead, he stood by the gate for a few moments, his gaze lingering on the warm light spilling from the windows. Neighbors peeking through their curtains could sense something electric in the air, as though the world had paused just for him. Finally, with a slow inhale, he pressed the bell. Tan Songyun's mother answered. She was caught off guard. This was no ordinary guest. Shu Kai bowed politely, his voice steady yet low. "Auntie, I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just needed to see Songyun." Her mother hesitated, her brows knitting ever so slightly. Shu Kai visiting this late, without warning, wasn't just unusual, it was unthinkable. But something in his tone, something almost desperate, made her step aside. "She's in the living room. Come in." Inside, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Tan Songyun was curled up on the sofa, scrolling through her phone, unaware of what awaited her. When she looked up and saw him, her fingers froze mid-swipe. Her expression flickered, surprise, confusion, and something else, something unspoken. "Shu Kai, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice caught between disbelief and caution. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a slow step toward her, his gaze locked on hers as if he were searching for the right words in the depths of her eyes. "I couldn't wait anymore," he said finally, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "There are things I need to tell you, and I can't say them anywhere else." The room seemed to shrink. Her mother, sensing the gravity of the moment, quietly retreated to the kitchen, though it was clear she was still listening. Shu Kai sat down across from Songyun, but the space between them felt charged, as though every breath, every glance carried a hidden weight. He glanced around the room, family photos on the walls, her childhood piano in the corner, the blanket her grandmother had knitted draped over the armchair. He was stepping into her most private world, and he knew it. "You've been avoiding me," he began, not accusing, just stating a fact. Songyun's eyes narrowed slightly. "You've been busy. We both have." "That's not what I mean." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You've been pulling away since that night in Hangzhou. And I need to know why." The mention of Hangzhou hit like a quiet thunderclap. She shifted uncomfortably, her gaze flicking to the window as though the answer might be hiding in the darkness outside. "Shu Kai, this isn't the place." "This is exactly the place," he cut in gently, his voice deep but controlled. "I came here because I wanted to face you without the cameras, without the noise. Just you and me." Outside, a sudden gust rattled the bamboo wind chimes, their hollow notes mingling with the silence inside. Songyun hesitated, but something in his eyes, a mix of determination and vulnerability, made her stay. "Do you remember that night?" he asked. "When we walked along the river, and you told me you didn't believe in coincidences?" She gave a faint, almost bitter smile. "I remember. I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm here tonight," he said. "Because if I didn't come now, I might never get the chance again." Her pulse quickened. "Why are you talking like this? What's going on?" For a moment, he didn't answer. He looked away, as if battling with himself. Then he took a deep breath. "There's a deal, a contract, something I was offered. It could change everything. And it would mean leaving for a very long time." The words hung between them like smoke. Songyun's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her mind flashed with images, the roles they'd played together, the quiet moments off camera, the way his laughter felt like sunlight. The idea of him being gone was like the air suddenly leaving the room. "So you came here to say goodbye?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. His jaw tightened. I came here because I needed you to tell me not to go. The confession was raw, unguarded, almost reckless. Songyun felt her breath catch in her throat. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the weight he was carrying. Beneath his calm exterior, there was fear. Not fear of failure, but of losing something far more important. Before she could speak, her mother returned with 2 cups of tea, her expression unreadable. She placed them on the table and quietly excused herself again, but not before giving Songyun a knowing look. The tea sat untouched. Shu Kai leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I know we've kept our distance. I know we've both been careful. But the truth is, I can't walk away without knowing if there's something here worth fighting for. Her hands tightened around the edge of the sofa cushion. The room felt warmer, the air heavier. She could hear her own heartbeat, loud and insistent. Shu Kai, she began, but stopped. Words felt too fragile for the moment. Then, almost without thinking, she stood and walked toward the piano. She sat down and began to play a simple, soft melody they both knew. It was the song she'd played on set during one of their quietest scenes together, a song that had stayed with him ever since. He listened, his expression shifting from surprise to something deeper, a mix of longing and gratitude. When she finished, the silence was thicker than before. That's your answer? He asked, his voice low. She turned to face him. That's my way of saying, I don't want you to go. Something in him seemed to break then, the tension in his shoulders, the guardedness in his eyes. He stood, crossed the room in 2 strides, and before she could react, he took her hands in his. I don't care what it costs, he said, his voice shaking just enough to betray him. I'll stay. And in that small, warm living room, surrounded by family memories, the scent of jasmine tea, and the quiet night outside, a decision was made that would alter both of their lives. They didn't know how they'd face the outside world. They didn't know if the cameras would ever find out, or if whispers would turn into headlines. All they knew was that, behind those closed doors, away from the flashing lights, they had chosen each other. Somewhere outside, the black car waited patiently, its engine quiet, as if respecting the moment. Neighbors who'd been watching from their windows saw Shu Kai emerge an hour later, his expression unreadable, but his steps lighter than when he'd arrived. Inside, Tan Songyun sat at the piano again, her fingers resting on the keys, her heart still racing. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long while, she felt certain about one thing. Shu Kai had come to her home unannounced, but he'd left with something unspoken yet powerful, a promise. And promises, especially ones made behind closed doors, have a way of changing everything. The night outside had grown heavier, almost pressing against the walls of the Tan family home. The quiet was deceptive, as though the whole street was holding its breath, aware that something far from ordinary was unfolding within. Shu Kai sat there, his hands loosely clasped, but his eyes never leaving Songyun's face. She had moved back to the sofa after playing the piano, but the melody still hung in the air, refusing to fade. You know, he began again, his voice quieter this time, this is the first time I've been here. She nodded, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. I didn't think you ever would. I almost didn't, he admitted, leaning back. I kept telling myself it would be too strange, too personal. But tonight, I didn't care. Songyun tilted her head slightly, studying him. There was something in his tone, not just determination, but a shadow of something else. Something he wasn't saying. Her mother's muffled movements in the kitchen were the only other sound in the house. The kettle hissed faintly, the clink of porcelain a reminder that they were not entirely alone. Shu Kai's gaze drifted to a framed photograph on the nearby shelf, a younger Songyun, maybe 12, grinning with flour-dusted cheeks in what looked like this very kitchen. His lips curved faintly. You look the same, he said. Same smile. Same eyes. Her cheeks flushed slightly. That's a very old photo. Doesn't matter, he replied, his eyes softening. I could recognize you anywhere. The room seemed smaller now, the distance between them less than it was minutes ago. A sudden knock on the gate outside shattered the moment. Both of them froze. Shu Kai's body tensed instantly, his posture straightening. Songyun exchanged a glance with him, a silent question in her eyes. Her mother's voice came from the hallway. "I'll get it." But Shu Kai stood. "No, I'll check." He moved to the window and parted the curtain just enough to see outside. Under the dim streetlight stood a man in a dark jacket, holding what looked like a small package. Nothing about him screamed danger, but Shu Kai's eyes narrowed anyway. When he returned to his seat, Songyun noticed the edge in his voice. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said after a pause. "Just a delivery." But something about the way he avoided her gaze told her it wasn't the whole truth. Her curiosity burned, but before she could press him, her mother reappeared, carrying a plate of dumplings. "Eat," she said simply, setting it down between them. "Conversations are better with food." Shu Kai smiled politely, picking one up. But as he bit into it, his mind wasn't on the taste. He kept glancing toward the front gate, as though waiting for something or someone. Songyun noticed. "You're acting like you're hiding from someone," she said, half teasing, half serious. He met her gaze then, and for the briefest second, there was no mask, no easy smile. Just raw honesty. "Maybe I am." The words hit her harder than she expected. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "From who?" His jaw tightened, but he shook his head. "Not tonight. Tonight's not about them." The statement was strange and unsettling, but the way he said it, with such finality, made her drop the subject for now. They ate in a silence that was anything but empty. Every clink of chopsticks, every stolen glance carried a weight they both felt but neither dared to name. At one point, Shu Kai set his chopsticks down and leaned forward again. "I keep thinking about how many times I've almost said something to you, and then stopped. On set. During press tours. Even at that fan meeting last winter. But when I saw you tonight in my head, sitting here in your home, I knew I had to come." She searched his face, trying to understand. "Why tonight?" He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on the table, sliding it toward her without a word. She unfolded it slowly. It was a travel itinerary, flights booked for 3 months, all overseas. No return date. Her breath caught. "This is the contract I mentioned earlier," he said quietly. "They want me there by the end of the week." Her heart pounded. "So, you're leaving?" "I was," he corrected, his gaze locking with hers. "Until I saw you just now." The air between them shifted again, this time heavier, sharper. She could feel her mother's presence nearby, probably pretending not to listen, but this moment felt too big for an audience. "Shu Kai," she whispered, "you can't make a decision like that because of me." His eyes softened, but his voice was steady. "I'm not making it because of you. I'm making it because of what I feel when I'm with you. And I'm not ready to let that go." Silence followed, not awkward, but deep, like the space between thunder and lightning. Outside, the wind picked up again, rustling the trees and rattling the bamboo chimes. The streetlight flickered briefly, casting shadows that danced across the room. Finally, she spoke. "If you stay, everything will change. You know that, right?" He nodded slowly. "I'm counting on it." Her lips parted as if to respond, but no words came. Instead, she found herself staring at him, seeing not the actor the world adored, but the man sitting in her family's living room, willing to risk his future for a truth they had never dared to say aloud. And for the first time that night, she let herself imagine what it would mean if he really did stay. The thought was terrifying and thrilling. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more dramatic and mind-blowing celebrity tales that will leave you wanting more.